The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the main streets of Los Angeles, California today. I'm sitting in my office at 316 Gimmick Street with my right arm in a sling. I am 5 days removed from having my rotator cuff repaired on the 20th of April. And I've got 5 holes in my shoulder. There's about 3 stitches in every hole, and arm's in a little bit of pain, the shoulder's in a little bit of pain, but other than that, I'm getting along fairly well, just learning how to do everything with my left hand, which has met with some challenges, but nothing that I haven't been able to overcome just yet. Interesting story. Last night I was sitting in bed drinking a glass of wine, and I had the glass of wine sitting basically on my leg and on a pillow, shifted the wrong way, and when I shifted the wrong way, I dumped about 4 ounces of red wine on my laptop computer and completely immersing all the buttons on the computer. So I jump up real quick, or as quick as I can with one arm, flip my computer upside down to drain the red wine out of it, and make my way into the kitchen. I pat the computer on the back like I'm trying to burp a baby and bring this thing back to life and get all the liquid from going into all the electronic stuff. Well, then I turned it back over and started wiping it down and getting it clean, but the damage had already been done. The red wine had already penetrated all of the little electronic stuff in there, and when I woke up this morning, I woke up to a dead computer. So that means I've got a real big problem on my hand. That means I'm going to have a hard time getting my podcast to Stacy because I use that computer with the software installed on it to send her the files. None of my other computers, my wife's computer, has that technology on it, and we should have a backup, but we don't. So my wife has to go do something with her mom in Thousand Oaks, which is about 45 miles away, which means she cannot take me to the Mac store to get a brand new computer for me to send all my stuff to Stacy for the podcast. And once I get the computer, I have to have all the software installed by my friend Dan Brady, who's on the way to the house as we speak to install the software. So I'm not out of the woods yet. And so basically, here's the story. I'm not medically cleared to drive yet because I'm fresh in my sling and I'm not supposed to move my right shoulder at all, which I'm not. I'm holding my microphone with my right hand right now as I speak, but I can't do anything. But my neighbor's gone. My wife is gone. I'm not going to call a taxi or an Uber or a limo to drive 10 miles to the computer store to get a goddamn computer. So very gingerly, I unlocked my 1995 Ford Bronco, ease in there, slowly put my seatbelt on, crank her up. Of course, she always starts on the first time, 95 Ford Bronco. That thing is pure gold, always dependable. Use my left arm to use the gear shift lever and hit the gas pedal, and away I go. Driving slowly all the way to the Mac store over there in Redondo Beach, wherever the hell it's at. It's a hell of a damn drive. And when you're driving with a torn rotator cuff or a recently repaired rotator cuff and you're in a little bit of pain, it's hard to look both left and right, head on a swivel. You know, when you're coming up to intersections and stuff like that, people changing lanes without using their blinkers. I'm thinking, man, the last thing I need to do is get into an accident because, you know, first of all, I can drive pretty damn good. Even with a freshly repaired rotator cuff, I probably drive better than 99% of the people in Los Angeles. Enough bragging. So anyway, I just don't need to get into an accident. I show up at the Mac store. I don't have an appointment. Luckily, today is my lucky day as far as luck could have it in that regards. There's not a gigantic long list of people waiting in line for iPhones, laptops, iPads, all that stuff. So the dude comes up. I tell him what happened. I didn't have the Apple Care program, which the Apple Care program wouldn't have taken care of the wine spillage anyway. So I say, basically, dude, I need the exact same computer. It's the highest 13-inch Mac Daddy computer with all the latest, greatest technology. All I need to do is to send FTP files for my podcast. So no sooner than I stepped in, I stepped out. $2,600 later, I got the Apple Care program. That still doesn't protect from spilling wine on the computer, but I got every kind of warranty you could ever get on one. I'm just waiting on the dude to come over and install this, and I don't need to be driving anymore. Got back to the house. You guys were kind enough to send me some questions. I'm going to make this a Q&A show. First show back. I had planned on doing some Skype conversation, but my new computer doesn't have Skype, and I'm waiting on the dude to come put that thing on as well. He's going to install everything but power windows and air conditioning on my new computer. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And I have made a pledge to myself. I am not going to drink a glass of wine or a bottled water or eat a sandwich or do anything within 3 feet of my computer. I think this is it's a second computer that I've ruined by spilling wine on it. And this one was straight up just because my right hand is in a damn sling. The other one, hey, might have had too much wine. Nonetheless, I got a brand new computer, and I paid for it. So thank you guys for listening to the show. I'm going to get to your Q&As, and I'm going to answer all these questions. Last time I told you guys to send me some questions, there weren't a whole lot of questions. There's a bunch. So I appreciate you guys helping me out while I'm in a bind with this arm. And getting out to interview people is kind of a hassle. Keep sending me the emails. Don't send me any get well emails. I appreciate your thoughts and everything like that. I'm doing good. It's just hard to get around. And when I come back from a break after I take care of this business that I'm going to take care of, I want to say a few words about Chyna. You know, I found out this past weekend that she had passed away, and I was one of the first people to find that out, actually. And I'll just mention some words about her and talk about, you know, the death of Prince, which shocked me. Chyna was the most shocking because I knew her and was friends with her. Then, on a guitar note, Lonnie Mack, Stevie Ray Vaughan's biggest influence, passed away as well. So, man, I tell you, it's just kind of a weird vibe, you know, but we got to do a podcast. And Chyna, man, basically, I guess she's 45, 46 years old, and just much too young for her to pass. But anyway, man, before we get here to the body of this podcast, and I'll address, you know, the things I just talked about, let me take care of some business. And I don't mean to mix these two because it doesn't sound like they really jive, but it's with a heavy heart that I do this podcast, but I got to take care of my business, and it is what it is. Folks, have you guys checked out the Work Switch Driver? It's a power drill that lets you rotate from drill to driver without changing bits, so you can get all those home projects done quick and easy. And Switch Driver is cordless, too, so no tripping over or getting tangled up in a cord. And don't worry about the torque and power of the cordless Switch Driver. This thing has a 20-volt max lithium battery, so it's going to drill whatever you need just fine. And the dual chuck is the key, because that's what lets you rotate from drill to driver without changing bits, and that's why you'll get your work done twice as fast. Like I said, you can take care of any project on your list and have plenty of time left over to knock back a couple of Broken Skull IPAs. You can see the Switch Driver in action at Works.com, and when you do, you'll notice that it's a really powerful tool, but it's also lightweight. And it's a great choice if you have to get stuff done while standing on a ladder or reaching above your head, like if you're hanging racks or installing overhead storage. So go to WorksSwitchDriver.com, that's WORX-SwitchDriver.com, and use the promo code Steve at checkout to receive 10% off and free shipping. That's WORX-SwitchDriver.com, and use my promo code Steve to receive 10% off and free shipping. Double your power and save time. Get yourself a Works Switch Driver. All right, everybody, let's kick this podcast into gear. And it's a hard segue or transition to make because I'm talking about the death of Chyna when I learned that she had passed. And the news completely just shocked me, just stunned me. Just could not believe it. But nonetheless, here was my day on April the 20th when I heard the news. Early that morning, about 8 a.m., I was down at the Carolyn Job Clinic about to get my right rotator cuff repaired on my shoulder. And they were running a little bit behind that day. Finally, they put me under and put 5 holes in my shoulder, went in there arthroscopically, and repaired all the damage I'd done to my shoulder. I'll find out on May 2nd the specifics of that. But nonetheless, I come out of that surgery, and I wake up, and I ask the doctor a lot of questions. And the only thing I remember him saying to my wife is, he's asking me a lot of questions, but he's not going to remember asking me any of this or remember any of my answers. And I remember him clearly saying that. And to his point, I clearly don't remember any answers that he gave me. So in that state of mind, I go back home. My wife is driving. I get to the house. They put in a nerve block there in my trap area. I remember right before they put me under, the anesthesiologist came in there. They put that nerve block in to kind of block the pain going to your shoulder. And that way, you don't have to just eat a bunch of pain pills, because there's that nerve block, which will last about a day and a half. And that really helps out post-surgery. So I wake up, I got the pain block going. I don't really need any pain pills. And I'm clear-headed now. I can remember all the events that are happening. And I'm wide awake. I start going through my normal checklist of things to do, making phone calls, telling everybody, well, my family, my loved ones, that my surgery was fine. And I'm fine. And then so I'm just kind of chilling out, letting all the effects of all the drugs that I've been given to keep me asleep wear off. And I get a phone call. Well, I missed the phone call, and then I get a text message. Hey, man, call me ASAP. And so I call this guy ASAP. And he proceeded to tell me that Chyna had indeed passed away, and that he had discovered her there in her apartment in Redondo Beach. And this was, man, in the evening, but this was hours and hours before this broke on a nationwide scene or a worldwide scene. And I was one of the first people to know. And when the guy called me, this hit me so hard, and I couldn't believe it. I said to him 3 times, I said, dude, you're shooting with me. Chyna's dead. And he said, Steve, he goes, I'm shooting with you. And he speaks the language. I said, dude, this is not a rib, right? Because you just don't rib like that. It would be a morbid rib. But there was just no way. And I knew this guy was a very close acquaintance of Chyna's. So I knew it was a shoot, but I could not believe it because, man, I hadn't seen Chyna in quite some time. But she's just one of those people, just because I know she's had a rough couple of years, and I know she had a rough childhood coming up. And I don't know the specifics of any of that, so I won't get into any of that. And I thought she was at a place in her life where I had assumed she was drug-free. I had recently sent her a couple of direct messages, and she had sent me a couple of back, and we were talking about doing the podcast. And I know she had been talking to Jim about doing his podcast as well. And I remember the last time I sent her a direct message was in return. She said, I'm looking forward to talking to you. And I direct messaged her back. I said, I'm looking forward to it. Let me know when you're ready. And, of course, I never heard anything back. And I was just figuring, because, me and Chyna or Joni, we didn't talk a whole lot. We were just very good friends from our relationship at WWE. And, man, all of a sudden, I get that phone call, and you know what? I was about 99% sure that I could believe the source and that she was gone, but that 1% of me, I told the dude, I said, hey, man, he goes, you can call people and let them know if you want to, and I'm like, man, I'm not going to call anybody. First of all, I'm shocked. Second of all, I don't have any confirmation. I'm just, dude, I take your word for it, but, that ain't my thing. So anyway, I hung up the phone. I looked right at my wife. She was in there making dinner, and I said, you ain't going to believe this. And she said, what? I said, Chyna is dead. She said, oh, my God. And my wife didn't know Chyna. She didn't watch wrestling. She didn't watch wrestling when I was in it. But she knew of her, and I'd been speaking to her or direct messaging her, and she knew that I was working on getting ready to have her on my show. And she could see what an impact it had on me. It was just like someone hit me in the head with a baseball bat. I'm coming out of this anesthesia. I'm pretty clear-headed, and then someone calls me and just tells me that someone that I cared deeply about and had many, many good times with was gone. And she was only, 46 years old. And again, I was under the assumption, I knew she'd had some issues, but I was under the assumption that she was, straightened up or clean or whatever. And, man, I tell you what, I just stood around and I was in shock. Didn't really know what to do. There's nobody to call. There's nothing to talk about. It's just so heavy duty. And this is a person. I remember the first time I met Chyna. It was somewhere up in the Northeast. For some reason, I might have been sharing a car with Shawn Michaels and Triple H, or I met him at the same hotel at the same time, whatever happened. And Chyna shows up, and she's going to make her debut the next day, I believe. And there's a connection there because Triple H was trained by Killer Kowalski, and Chyna had just completed Killer Kowalski's wrestling school. And I guess someone had given the office, a buzz. Hey, man, there's this real big chick, and she looks pretty badass. And Killer Kowalski trained her, and she's got a great look. So anyway, I don't know how the dynamics and all that went down, but, I mean, I remember meeting her that night for the first time. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this chick is bad. I mean, she looks great. She's built like $1,000,000. You can see she's been spending hours and hours in the gym. And, watching her train, the textbook form she had, I mean, her form was better than most of the guys. And she was serious about what she was trying to do. And she's a smart lady, as I would come to find out. But anyway, so she gets in the company. Well, I'm not going to do a whole synopsis on her career, but I hit it off with Chyna from day one. And as I got to know her, I got to know her silly side. And me and her always had this kind of, we had a great relationship, but this goofy, silly sense of humor that probably only me and her got. And, there's obviously all the guys she worked with in DX, Billy Gunn and X-Pac and Triple H. There's many people that knew Chyna better than I did, but I got a chance to hang out with her a lot, do business with her a lot, watch her learn the system, watch her understand the push, and watch her get over and watch her operate. And she got over big time in the Attitude Era. And she had a monster run, and she had a definite impact on the business of professional wrestling there in WWE. And she was helping draw some of those houses. And she was a force to be reckoned with. I just remember her taking care of her business and learning the business side of the business and climbing up the ranks. And, man, she was working with guys. I remember about a time there when they brought in, it was Perry Saturn and Eddie Guerrero and Dean Malenko and Chris Benoit. And I remember one time we were at television taping, I believe, and it was going to be 3 of those guys. I know Perry Saturn, I think Benoit, and maybe it was Malenko or Benoit. But there's 3 of them in a ring, and it was going to be a 3-person, a 6-man tag. And it was going to be Chyna and Billy Gunn, who were a strong part of DX, and myself. And we were in the finish room going over how things were going to go down out there at the ring. And so the 3 guys from WCW, the Invaders, were going to be down there. And then here comes Billy Gunn and Chyna. And I remember we were talking backstage, and the agent says, now, Billy, when you and Chyna get down there, there's 3 of them in the ring, so you 2 just wait at the bottom, wait for Stone Cold, and when he gets there, y'all go in the ring, and y'all start the match and start doing everything. Chyna, without hesitation, looks over at the agent and says, well, why would we wait for Stone Cold? Aren't we going to kind of look dumb just waiting there by ourselves? Why wouldn't we get in there and start kicking their ass? And, on one hand, I'm sitting there thinking, hello, hey, I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm the hottest cat in the business right now. And first of all, there's 3 of them. There's 2 of you. And also, you're female. Billy Gunn didn't have, he didn't really care because he knew that it was outnumbered. But my point is, the moxie that Chyna had to say that because she believed in herself. She believed in her gimmick. She believed how over she was. And on one hand, I couldn't believe the audacity of it. But on the other hand, I always gave her credit because, hey, man, she was looking out for herself. She was looking out for her character, and she wasn't out there messing around. She was a very funny person and very smart, but she was serious about the business. And so it ended up, they waited for Stone Cold to show up, and I remember we went out there and had the match, and I don't remember the specifics of the match, but I just remember, her taking herself and that character very serious. And as she took herself serious, she was pushed serious, and the fans, the WWE fans, took her serious. And for a female to come in and basically be a guy's heater or backup or muscle, because, man, she really helped out the Triple H character. They were such a package together. And that was money. And then her and DX was obviously money. Man, I'll never forget one time working with Triple H in Germany, and we were working in front of people that just loved Triple H in Chyna. Of course, Stone Cold's going over. I stun Triple H, pin him 1, 2, 3. Chyna comes in, stun her. And then here comes a dude. He starts jumping on me. I thought it was a rib. I thought one of the boys from the back had hit the ring and was pulling a rib on us. Well, it was one of the German fans who was pissed off that I stunned Triple H in Chyna. So Triple H gets up and starts beating the hell out of the guy that jumped me. And I just got finished watching a clip. I was going over some Chyna clips before I started this podcast. And I didn't realize that I actually eliminated Chyna from the Royal Rumble in 1999. Seconds after she eliminated the world's strongest man, Mark Henry. She turned around, fed right into a clothesline over the top rope. Down she goes. I remember another time, I can't remember which pay-per-view it was, but it was a deal where Stone Cold and Chyna met face-to-face in the middle of the ring, and I'm trying to get by her or something, and she won't let me by, or she's dissing me. There's something that's going on there. And then I think I'm just finally just trying to get out of the ring. And when I go to get out of the ring, and I couldn't find this clip on YouTube. I've seen it before. But she just double fingers me. She gives me the double birds, and then she turns around. And I kind of look at that crowd, and I'm working a crowd. I'm like, that ain't going to work. That's a straw that broke a camel's back. And so I turned around. I guess I spun her around and kicked her in the gut and dropped her with a stunner. But she was, Chyna was one of the funniest, sweetest people that I've known in the business of pro wrestling. And I think if you go back, if you ask all those people that was there in the locker room when she was there, when she was hot, universally, you're going to get thumbs up from her. I think all the guys respected her. Everybody knew she was over. And whatever happened with why she left the WWE or who was responsible for that, I don't know any of that. That's soap opera stuff that I didn't get into. But I respected Chyna. I liked Chyna. I thought she was a badass, and she was an absolute sweetheart, and she was very intelligent. You know, I know Chyna had her issues, after she left the WWE. But, man, she had made a comeback from that, and I knew that she was teaching English. I think just come back to the States. And I guess they were filming a documentary about her life. And, man, it's just I don't think it'll ever be right because she didn't go into the Hall of Fame, while she was alive, living and breathing with us. And I thought she earned the right to be in the Hall of Fame. And to put her in there posthumously, if I'm saying that word correctly, man, it's just not good enough. And so I don't know how you rectify that, how you deal with that, because things are just screwed up. And, man, her going into the Hall of Fame is just so small in comparison to the fact that this young lady is no longer with us. I don't know what to make of it. But anyway, I'll wrap up my thoughts about Chyna by saying I just thought she was a super sweetheart lady. She had her issues. Hey, man, we all do. She weathered a lot of storms. She had a tough life. But on the big stage, she got out there and performed. She gave her heart. She gave her heart and soul to everything she did. And she loved the business. And she was a pleasure to be around. And she was a breath of fresh air. And I was sorry to hear on April 20th when I got that phone call that she was passed away, and it was indeed true. So Chyna, I always call her Chyna. Some people call people by their first names, depending on how you know them. Joni, man, I'll miss you. I had so much fun with you and enjoyed all of our times that we got to spend together in our stupid brand sense of humor. That time I busted my ass in the Houston Summit right before I was fixing to go out there and wrestle Mick Foley, and you were sitting on that anvil case, and I was putting my water on and slipped in a pile of water and busted my ass right in front of you. I remember all them good times, and I remember you, and I wish you were still here. And, you segue on now to the news about Prince. When I heard that Prince had died, and it's like, I know Chyna like a close friend. And Prince was one of those guys where it's like, man, are you kidding me? I thought that guy was such a health fanatic that, he'd always taken care of himself. And now I'm reading reports. I don't want to get into the reports because I think there were some pain medications involved or something like that. I don't know what the deal was, but I got to pay my respects to Prince because he was one of the defining artists of my time. Michael Jackson was like the guy, for back when I was a kid, growing up to when he passed. I mean, Michael Jackson was the bomb. And Prince was like the bomb, but he was different. He was a different kind of package, different kind of music, different kind of dancing, but same kind of superstar. And Michael Jackson's probably the greatest of all time, but Prince was up there with him, not on the same cloud, but on a parallel cloud. And then you hear that he died. It's like, man, are you kidding me? That guy, like, again, one of the soundtracks of my life and a big part of my youth growing up was listening to Prince songs and his influence. And man, when that MTV craze was going on and he was red hot, you hear about a guy like that passing, you're like, man, I just didn't know that there was any issues with that guy. And so my thoughts go out to his family and condolences. Also to Chyna's family. I don't know how many of her family members are here, but then on the last note, before I get into some questions, and again, this is probably the hardest podcast I've done because this is not easy to talk about, but it's just everybody died. I got news that Lonnie Mack passed away a couple of days ago, and 99% of you people that are listening to the podcast don't know who Lonnie Mack was, but Lonnie Mack was one of the greatest guitar players that ever lived. And he was probably the single biggest influence on my favorite guitarist of all time, Stevie Ray Vaughan. If it had not been for Lonnie Mack, there would not have been Stevie Ray Vaughan as we knew him. Stevie Ray Vaughan would have existed. He would have been a great guitarist, but his trademark sound and working that whammy bar the way he did was because of a man named Lonnie Mack. And I'll never forget the story of Stevie Ray going into a record shop in Dallas, South Oak Cliff area, and he had gathered together enough money because his brother Jimmy was tired of him listening to all his records. Stevie went up to the Austin record store, and he told the guy that was running the shop, he said, "Give me the baddest guitar record you got." And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Lonnie Mack's Wham, and that was how and why Lonnie Mack would influence Stevie Ray's sound and style. And if you get on YouTube, man, there's one song that's so haunting, and it just showcases some of the tremendous guitar playing work of Lonnie Mack. Check out a song called Stop. Lonnie Mack, Stop. It's a slow song. It's bluesy. Watch him on the neck of that guitar. Listen to his voice. God dang, this guy could sing the blues. I don't think he got enough credit for his voice. But his guitar work is phenomenal, as was his voice. And then, man, you can watch Stevie Ray Vaughan and Lonnie Mack do Wham together, and you got to check out Lonnie Mack singing Oreo Cookie Blues. It's just a funny song that he wrote about Oreo cookies and stuff like that, and he made it into a song. But anyway, I spent 20 minutes talking about three people. One person specifically that was very close to me, but that impacted my life. And so I'm going to take a break right now. It's early in the show. I'm sitting here in my office. I got 5 holes in my shoulder. And the shoulder's not even bothering me. But it's just hard to talk about and make a proper segue from someone you cared about and the people that impacted your lives and just kick into questions. So I'm taking a break right now. I'm coming back to answer your questions and try to bring it up a notch. Steve Austin, I'm coming right back.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
Do you own a home or condo? Or perhaps you rent a house or apartment? Sure you do. And Geico knows it can be hard work. Because whether you own or rent, you still have to fill it full of your stuff. Your furniture, the flat screen, and all the boxes of stuff that have been sitting there ever since you moved in, but haven't unpacked. It's hard to find the time, right? But you know what's easy? Bundling policies with Geico. Geico makes it easy to bundle your homeowner's or renter's insurance along with your auto policy. That way, you'll rest easy knowing that your home and all your stuff is protected, like the furniture and that flat screen. Plus, getting a quote on homeowners and renters insurance is super easy through Geico. It's a good thing, too, because you already have so much to do around your home. You know, like going through all those boxes of stuff. Visit geico.com, get a quote, and see how much you could save. It's Geico easy. Visit geico.com today. That's geico.com.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
All right, everybody, let's kick his podcast into gear. I took a little break, a word from the sponsors to keep this show on the air for free. And when I came off the break, I actually shut down for about 2 hours so I could get into my email, questions at steveaustinshow.com, and copy and paste all the questions that I picked. The questions were, for the most part, questions that I have not answered before. So about 2 hours has passed since I had that first 20-minute conversation about Chyna and Prince, about Lonnie Mack. So let's try to get past that now and pick up a little bit of momentum and finish this thing with a head of steam and talk about some wrestling questions and the questions that you guys sent in. I'm a little bit different frame of mind. So that being said, let's keep this thing going and make a podcast out of this. First time out of the gate since my shoulder surgery. I want to give you guys a good show. I appreciate you tuning in and giving me a chance to do 2 cans of audio whoop ass for you guys each and every single week. Hey man, here's a question straight out of the gate from a man named Michael. He says, if you could only drink 1 beer for the rest of your life, which one would it be? Michael, that's a very simple answer. Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. I truly believe it's the best, if not one of the best IPAs in the United States of America. Beer tasting is very subjective. What I love, you may hate, and vice versa. But when you're talking about India Pale Ales, I do believe that Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA is such a high-quality beer and built to my taste buds. Remember, if you're a beer aficionado, if you're a craft beer aficionado, hey man, swig a beer to you and your palate and whatever you like. To the man that asked me this question, Michael, I would drink my own beer, and that's all I would drink. And that being said, if I only had to drink 1 beer, thankfully I can try all the different beers from all the craft brewers all across the United States of America. And I'm looking forward to visiting more breweries in the future, talking to their brewmasters, and getting a chance to share their badass beer and talk to them about their palate, their taste buds, and the process that they go about in trying to, make their flavor of beer. So it's a fun thing for me. I drink Broken Skull IPA. Hey, Steve, do you think the match quality of the Attitude Era was better or worse than it is now? And this was asked from a guy named Luigi. Luigi, I hope I got your name right. Let's talk about the match quality of the Attitude Era versus the match quality of today. I think across the board, because of the depth of the roster, the experience in the ring from veterans, guys that were over, the announce crew, the fans, and the whole atmosphere, really, that's a subjective answer as well. But I truly think the match quality was better in the Attitude Era. I think there are some stellar matches being presented today, and there's some badass athletes working on the active roster today. And you've got a bunch of veterans in that roster as well. But when you put all the different aspects of the match, whether it's just the mechanics, the psychology, the carrying out of that match, all of the elements combined, the experience was so much more explosive and spontaneous. If you want to talk about sheer mechanics and athleticism, I think you'd go with the new generation that's in the ring right now. I'm saying the match quality with all of the experience from all of the guys. I mean, so many more guys are going to end up going into the Hall of Fame that came from that era. I would say match quality was better back then. And I don't say that to dump on the current roster, because there's some badass cats out there that can work their asses off. And there was a lot of schlock and there was a lot of shock value in a lot of the storylines that kind of mired down some of the luster of the Attitude Era. So many people seem to harp on that rather than the work that was done in the ring. We shot some heavy-duty angles back then, and there were so many badass workers from top to bottom, from Brett to Sean, to myself, to DX, to Mankind, Triple H, Taker. Man, I'm not even mentioning everybody. Everybody there could work their ass off. And for the most part, really, the entire roster was over. And with the fans, with the refs, with the announce team, the whole experience, match quality, attitude era, hands down, and that's the bottom line. Now, me personally, I really dig the stuff that was done in the mid-'80s in WCCW, Mid-South Power Pro, and NWA. That's some of my personal favorite stuff. It is what it is. Here's a question from Christian. He says, "Hey, Steve, from your old stomping grounds in Dallas, Texas, how was it for you stepping out on the stage at WrestleMania 32? Were you nervous? And how did it feel to stunner after for so long? Big fan of yours for years." Christian, I tell you what, Dallas, Texas was my old stomping grounds, and it felt good to go back there and be a part of WrestleMania 32 in front of about 100,000 people. Wasn't nervous at all. Man, we went over the business at hand 2 or 3 times. And when you look at me working with Mick Foley and Shawn Michaels, I think probably combined there's about almost 100 years of experience just with us 3 guys. Working with the League of Nations and the New Day, those guys are badass hands, all very excited, all easy to work with. And they weren't nervous either. But, man, I've been around the horn so many times. And looking at Shawn, right before we went out, and he just kind of looks at me and shrugs his shoulder like, okay, here we go. And that's what it was for me, too. And that glass broke, and that roof almost exploded off the AT&T Center, and I had a great time with that hellacious pop that I got. And we went out there and took care of the business. Again, not to harp on the shoulder, that was a little bit of a downer during it all, but no nerves, man. You live for moments like that, and it was just total cruise control. And I got to say thank you for the people that popped like they did, because it was a good time, and I enjoyed every single bit of it. Hey, Steve, what are the chances of seeing some WWE superstars on the Broken Skull Challenge? Which men and women on the WWE roster would you like to see compete, and who do you think would win? Well, I've answered that question a few times, but let's just go back to what are the chances of seeing the WWE superstars on the Broken Skull Challenge. Now, the Broken Skull Challenge is the toughest show on television, folks. And the WWE wrestlers, superstars, are some of the best athletes out running around doing what they do in a 20-by-20 squared circle. The fact of the matter is this: they're so damn busy, they ain't got time to come down and do an episode of Broken Skull Challenge. It'd be great to do something like that for charity, but also due to the fact that their schedule is so grinding, so grueling, I don't think they need to subject their bodies to any of the harm that could possibly come to them coming out to the Broken Skull Challenge. You getting those elements out there, some of the physicality that we do, these guys need to stay safe, take care of their bodies, and take care of their families, and that's paying the gimmicks they send in the mail call bills. So they need to just stick to the task at hand and do their thing. But it would be a sight to see, and no doubt about it, the Broken Skull Challenge is the toughest show on television. It's on CMT every damn Sunday. We got the season finale coming up this Sunday. Do not miss the men and women's episode this Sunday. I will give you one heads up. It's absolutely epic. And Jeremy sent that question in. Here's a question. It says, "Hey, Steve, this is more of a life question than a wrestling question. If you could go back and tell your younger self some life advice, what would it be?" Chris: "Man, if I could go back and give myself, when I was younger, some life advice, man, I would say, Steve, slow down, think about it, and then think about it some more, and then act." It's always funny when you get a chance to talk to someone that's older and wiser than you, much like my conversation with Leon Big Van Vader White back in WCW when he told me, "Steve, always let a cooler head prevail. Every now and then we'll go out and talk to a man named Chuck out in the desert. He's a World War II veteran. He's 93 years old. And every time I get a chance to talk to him, I'll just pick up some of the wisdom or some of the things that he's been through, and I'll apply those to my life." But yeah, right off the top of my head, man, I would say slow down, think things through, and then I'll give you one more: everything in moderation, and that's the bottom line. Hey, Steve, back when you were a youngster, was there a particular car in your family that you wished they had kept? And finally, what started your affinity for the Bronco? Are they sentimental or purely a practical choice? Man, I tell you what, Joe, I was always mad at myself for selling my 71 Firebird Formula and then my 73 Camaro, which had the Corvette motor from 73. I wish I still had those two cars. And then on the truck level, I had two Ford pickups. I had a Fleet Side 1966 with a straight six-cylinder, 3 on the tree, and I had a 65 Step Side that had 66,000 original miles with the straight 6 on it, 3 on the tree, that I bought from a lady in Denton, Texas while I was playing football at North Texas State University. I took that truck and bought the Fleet Side in Georgia, and when I moved back to Texas, I sold those two trucks. So probably even more important than the 71 Firebird and the 73 Camaro, I wish I had both of those two trucks back because of the kind of condition they were in and how original they were. And they weren't museum quality type showpieces. These were everyday trucks, but they were in such astounding shape with original paint. Those are the two vehicles I wish I had kept over the course of all the vehicles and cars and trucks and stuff that I've had. And going back to the Bronco, when I first started looking for a two-door SUV, I was originally looking for a Chevy Blazer, but all the Chevy Blazers on eBay had tons and tons of miles on them. My dad, when I grew up, all my dad drove was GMC Jimmys. Now, the GMC Jimmy is just like the Chevy Blazer. The Jimmy is the name for the GMC version. So I always grew up driving, those kind of products and being in those kind of cars, Chevy, GMC. And when I went to find one, low mileage, couldn't find one, and I found my white and silver Ford on eBay, and it had 24,000 miles on it when I bought it. And it's got the 5.8-liter 351, and I'd always been a Chevy guy growing up, and when I started driving that Bronco, the turning radius, the bulletproof drivetrain, the 351 or the 302, the 5.8, the 5.0 liter, as far as power, neither one of them has a lot of power, but they're enough for that vehicle. They're great in the mud, cavernous room interior. And so once I started driving that 95 Ford Bronco, I think total I've owned 5 or 6 Broncos. I currently own 3. But I just think they're bulletproof vehicles, and they always work. They're very dependable. It's like those old Crown Victorias. You could put 300,000 or 400,000 miles on a Crown Vic. All those cab drivers drove them, like a Lincoln Town car. All the limos drive them. Those cars all had 200,000 or 300,000 miles on them. So just the fact that it's such a bulletproof vehicle. I love the fact that all the Bronco XLTs all came with power windows and power door locks. That was a feature that I always dug. And if you got the XL, you'd have roll-up windows. I've got one of those down at the ranch for my dad's hunting vehicle. But then I just fell in love with the styling. Those things are so damn good looking and so cool looking. I just think it's one of the toughest, coolest, most iconic vehicles that ever rolled out of Detroit. Now, OJ kind of tarnished the image of the Bronco when he was riding down the 405, wherever it was, with Al Callen's way back in the day. But my Bronco is white and silver, and I refuse to let what O.J. Simpson did tarnish the name of the Bronco. Because every time someone would look at my truck and say, "Oh, that's the OJ vehicle, huh?" I said, no, that's a Ford Bronco, and that's my Bronco, and it's got a silver stripe on it. So I don't know nothing about no OJ truck. He drove what he drove. I drive what I drive, and that's the bottom line. Hey, man, here's a question. He says, "Hey, Steve, I don't have a question, but I was wondering if you can give a shout-out to my kids, Darren, Ava, and Madison." Hey, Darren, Ava, and Madison. Their mom is battling cancer and would love to hear from you. It would mean the world to them. If you don't mind giving my wife, Candace, a shout-out, too. You're really the only wrestler she took interest in. Thanks, Steve. From Danny here in San Antonio. Well, hey, man, to Darren, Ava, and Madison, you guys keep your heads up and try to support your mother as much as you can. Candace, keep your spirits up and keep a positive attitude. I can only know that the struggle that you're going through is very, very tough. And Danny, my thoughts are with you guys, and all positive vibes coming down to San Antonio, Texas. Y'all hang in there. Please hang in there. Here's one from Jason McGill. He says, "Hey, Steve, I know you're a fan of the UFC as I am, and obviously you'll be forever connected to the WWE. My question is, do you think the UFC and WWE are actually competitors? Are they competing for the same audience, Or are they entirely different genres of entertainment in your mind? You know, Jason, that's an interesting question. I think 10, 15 years ago, I think there was a lot of crossover. I think as the WWE has segued or turned to a more kid-friendly product, what is it, the reality era, but it's TV 14, whatever it is, I still think there's a common, if you put two circles, and one circle is the UFC, another circle is the WWE, and you put those circles together, there's going to be some intersect there where there's a common demo, but for the most part, in my opinion, I think they're entirely two separate crowds. Back in the day when our business more mirrored what the UFC was doing, you know, your product is a work, but you're presenting it as a shoot when you got Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler calling the action and everybody was competing for that damn belt. You had a little bit of blood every now and then. Just in its presentation alone, it was just a mirror image. And now I think the UFC, you know, they go about doing pro wrestling better than we do pro wrestling. They take organic storylines and expound upon them. If you got some colorful characters in there, be it a Conor McGregor or a Nate Diaz or any of those other guys that might talk a little trash, also have great showmanship skills on top of their already tremendous fight skills. You have wrestling, then you have elements of pro wrestling, but it indeed is a shoot sport. And my favorite times in the business of pro wrestling were going back earlier in the podcast when I mentioned mid-'80s, WCCW, Mid-South Power Pro, NWA, all presented in a shoot light. Funny was not money. Serious was money. There's a spot on the card for something that can lighten the atmosphere or lighten the mood or give you a chuckle. But by and large, when you got championship gold on the line, when you got personal issues on the line, like you do in the UFC, like you used to have in the business of pro wrestling, that's when you have crossover. That's when they shared the same audience almost damn near. And you're always going to have your purist. Like some boxing people will only watch boxing, while some boxing people are as well interested in the UFC. But so they share a common demographic. But that's my thoughts on that. I think it existed back in the day more so than today because of the product. All right, I got to take a minute here to say thanks to you guys for supporting all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. They are the ones who let me do this podcast twice a week for FREE. That spells free. So, big shout out to Onnit and Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain keeps me on my A game, helps me keep this family-friendly show entertaining and fun for the whole family. I am sharp, focused, and not dropping any cuss words because I take a couple of Alpha Brain, a few swigs of coffee, hit the record button on my Zoom H4n recorder, and I'm laying down some serious audio whoop-ass content just for you. And if you want to be on top of your game, then get yourself some Alpha Brain at Onnit.com/Steve. And if you do, you will save 10% off your order. You can get 10% off anything you order at Onnit.com/Steve, including Shroom Tech Sport and T+. So go take advantage of this 10% discount off your order. Just go to Onnit.com/Steve. And another great thing about Onnit and all their products is if they don't work the way they're supposed to, you can get all your money back, no questions asked. Money back guarantee. Hey, go to Onnit.com/Steve to get your 10% discount off all your supplements. I'll spell it out for you. That's Onnit.com/Steve to get 10% off your order. Here's another question. This is from Jim, Imperial Valley of California. Hey, Steve, what's the secret for these bigger, heavier guys like Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt not getting blown up? I carry a little extra weight, and I get blown up bending down to tie my shoes. I don't get it. Well, Jim, man, those big guys you're mentioning like Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt, what they do is pro wrestling, and those are two big bone guys. And, you know, much like I was, or guys that were bigger than all us, the guys you just mentioned, Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt, they're big guys. They're physical guys, but they're not the biggest guys on the roster. What the deal is, man, those guys are professional athletes, in my opinion. What they do for a living is run up and down the road in a 20 by 20 squared circle and do business, and that's wrestling. If you were to take Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt out of the ring for 2 months and then throw them back in, they get blown up sky high because you can't duplicate, that ring activity with anything else. You can get on a treadmill, You can get on a bike. You can get on a jump rope. You can do anything to keep your edge. But the fact of the matter is, Kevin Owens and Bray Wyatt are badass athletes that are in shape, and their cardio is specific to what they do. Man, they wrestle. And that's why you never see them blow up. If you take them out of the ring, though, and then you put them back in the ring without getting any ring time in, then they'll blow back up. But right now, man, those guys, whatever your interpretation of their appearance is, or me in my prime, I never looked like $1 million. I never looked like a bodybuilder, but, man, if you want to just talk about lungs and the fact that I could go, I was your guy. You don't blow up. You turn into a machine. That's what these two guys are. They're machines, and I wish them both well, and hopefully they stay safe out there on the road doing what they do. If you're in shape, you don't blow up. Coming here from Eric. Eric says, hey, Steve, do you have a quote-unquote trophy room or otherwise keep and display any items from your ring career? Old ring gear like the lights, camera, action robe, replica title belts, magazine covers, etc.? Man, Eric, I tell you what, I got a closet about 10 feet from me over here to my right-hand shoulder, and there's about 8 Stone Cold Steve Austin vests. The very lights, camera, action robe you mentioned in your email is hanging up in there. But they're not on display, man. They're hanging up there on hangers because they've been retired. I got a couple of belts out there in my safe. Most importantly, that's near and dear to my heart, is the Intercontinental title I won from Owen when I got dropped on my head that night. And I remember that they were going to retire that belt and break out a new one. And I told Vince, I said, well, I'm keeping this one. And I meant I was keeping that one because I damn near got paralyzed in that match, and I wanted that belt. But here and there, now behind me, there's my Got Milk poster from, man, that was from 1999. But that's the only, well, I got a Broken Skull IPA framed beer poster over here that all the people from El Segundo Beer signed, but that's not a wrestling thing. I got a picture down my hallway. It's me giving Road Dogg Jesse James a stunner, happened at Madison Square Garden. I was walking down the hall one time at Madison Square Garden, and Vince McMahon was right there with me. And we both looked over and we saw that picture on the wall. I said, man, I sure would like to have a copy of that for my damn house. I can't remember what happened, but somehow, some way, of course, he's Vince McMahon. He's pretty crafty, and he's used to doing business with Madison Square Garden. But Vince McMahon grabbed that very piece of artwork and sent it to my address. I don't remember where I was living at the time, but down the hallway in my house, going towards my bedroom, is a picture. It's probably about, I don't know, 24 by 30 or 30 by 36, whatever it is. It's a rectangular picture. And we're about 6 inches off the mat. Either we were about to hit the mat or we were bouncing back off the mat, and Road Dogg was in perfect position. I remember the roof blew off the building that night, and Vince McMahon gave me that picture. But no, to answer your question, those are the very few things I have. Most of the stuff that I have here in my office is I've got some porcelain signs that I've collected. I've got a Greyhound bus sign from the 40s. I've got Stevie Ray Vaughan pictures. I've got a signed Stevie Ray Vaughan Fender guitar, Standard Oil Company of New York porcelain sign. My antique clock collection, which someone asked me a question about in here. But nah, man, down at the Broken Skull Ranch, I had a office with all my plaques for all the platinum DVDs we made back in the day. But I don't have a trophy room. I wish I would have done a better job collecting some of the stuff from back in the day, but now that I look at it, it's back in the day, so ain't no sense in just sitting there and having it hang around everywhere. If you walked in my house, you would never think that Stone Cold Steve Austin lives here, because most of the stuff on our walls is pictures of Shona, Hershey, and Moolah. Pictures of our dogs are everywhere, more so than me and my wife or anything that is Stone Cold. And that's the answer to that question. Here's one. He said, hey, Mr. Austin, long-time listener and a huge Stone Cold fan. My question goes back to 1998. There was a storyline where The Undertaker dropped a bunch of blood on you when you were in the ring. What was actually dumped on you? I'm obviously assuming it wasn't real blood. And that's from Josh in Cleveland, Ohio. You know, Josh, I believe you're referring to Kane. When Kane and I were going to have the first blood match, and we were going to have to be the main event, there was going to be a Hell in a Cell match, which was fought by Mick Foley versus The Undertaker, which was an absolute show stealer and one of the greatest matches in the history of wrestling. And we were going to follow that match. But that, if I'm not mistaken, that happened in Austin, Texas. And there's so many damn details of my career I forgot. But there's, for some reason, I remember that happening in Austin, Texas. And it was like a corn syrup with food coloring added to it. And it was the perfect thickness of blood. And I remember Richie from Magic. That's what we used to call the prop guys. Richie from Magic rigged up that blood. And I don't know how much it was. And I wasn't even standing on a particular spot or mark in the ring. And then when Kane gave that signal and that blood started pouring down, it just happened so perfectly to land all over my back, shoulders, and my head. And it was so eerie. Someone sent me this clip just on YouTube a few weeks ago, and I rewatched it. Kane does this thing, and he just cocks his head to the side a little bit, and it was so had so much mystique and mysterious and just scariness to it. And he put that metal thing to his throat, and he cuts a promo on me. It's about 2 lines, and then he walks off, and it was badass. Kane was so intimidating and scary way back in the day, and he's one of the greatest guys in the business. He's had an outstanding career. He's one of the nicest guys backstage. He's read damn near every book in history. But I'll never forget how cool that moment was, how it played out to perfection, and just how cool Kane was putting that thing to his throat. And me, getting covered up in blood, it was representative of the fact that I would be wearing a crimson mask at the end of the first blood match. And indeed, Mick Foley, who's already been to hell and back, comes down and takes a stunner from me. Here comes Undertaker. He's got a steel chair. I pick up a steel chair. As I'm going to pick up mine to swing, he swings first. Double percussion. Wham. I start bleeding like a stuck pig, and Baby Earl is there to call the match. I don't know what's going on because I don't realize I'm bleeding, according to the storyline. Of course, I know I'm cut. I know I've been bleeding. And so Kane wins the match. So it was Kane that dropped the blood on me. It was made out of some sticky material, like corn syrup, with food coloring added. And I believe Richie from Magic rigged up that entire thing, and it was absolutely awesome. All right, here's a question about the current product in the ring. Hey, Steve, what are your thoughts on the most recent presentation of Roman Reigns? WWE have obviously fed him the line, I'm not a good guy, I'm not a bad guy, I'm the guy. Are they starting to accept that a large proportion of fans still resist his push and are allowing him to take a more organic heel turn? Or do you think that they're going to settle for him being a tweener like Chyna? He goes on to ask and add, personally, I think Reigns should definitely go heel now, and I believe his promos would improve as he can throw as much attitude and arrogance into it as he likes. This new line of his still doesn't feel as natural to me when he delivers it. I was on board with the original push, but I think it has died a harsh death, and WWE need to respond accordingly. Cheers, Kieran, all the way from Dudley near Birmingham in England. I watched the last episode of Monday Night Raw. All right, I lied to you. I didn't watch all of Monday Night Raw, but I did watch 30 minutes of it, and I saw that promo that you're referring to. I don't know, because I haven't watched Raw in at least 6 months or better. I watched the pay-per-views, but I felt some electricity during that promo. He doesn't have it yet, but I think he's starting to every now and then get a taste or a feel for it. I think that line's going to play out in the next 2 to 3, 4 months. I think this guy is going to really start coming into his own. I think he's on the cusp of whatever they've done to him, starting off with him, throwing gas on him, taking the gas pedal off. I think this kid is going to get some confidence as soon as they give him some more repetitions, and I think it's going to be an organic thing where the audience makes up their mind and you don't try to fight it. You just keep doing what you're doing. He's going to start manipulating that crowd, I believe, once he gets a feel for it. Maybe Paul Heyman could talk to him a little bit, but there were moments in there where I'm thinking, okay, he doesn't know what he's doing yet. He doesn't have the instincts yet, but I think this kid is on his way. And I think he's going to be in for a monster run. That's my prediction. Now, he has to do it. It still has to happen. But I felt organically in there. There were some moments where, and it's still clunky. Make no mistake about it. It's still clunky. but I think this kid's going to have a big-time run, and we're watching the starting steps of it, and he's crawling right now, and he's going to start walking, and then this kid's going to start running. Now, that being said, I'm liking what I'm feeling or seeing or sensing in these promos, but you got to have the work to back that up. And if you're going to just stick to the same moveset, I would move that vest, that catcher's, protector's vest, whatever that thing is, I would go to a thin black T-shirt, cut off the sleeves, cut out the neck, and wear it as something that's just a little, that looks better. The kid's got a great body. Take that catcher's, protector's vest off, because I think it looks like crap. But that's not going to be the be-all, end-all. I felt some moments in there of electricity starting. There's going to be a fire. If he can back it up, if he can improve his work, the kid's going to get over big time. Again, I'm seeing certain things there that I really like. Proof's going to be in the pudding. Proof's going to be 6 months down the road. All I got to do, let this kid keep going out there and doing what he's doing. If they take him as arrogant and start booing him, I just felt the electricity of that crowd, and I think he's going to be just fine. We'll wait and see. I look forward to seeing it and wish him all the best. Hey, Steve, when you were white hot in the WWE/F, what was your favorite piece of Steve Austin merchandise they produced? And what was the worst Steve Austin merch they made? Dave McCallum from the United Kingdom. Man, I got a lot of questions coming from United Kingdom. I appreciate all the support over there in the UK. When I'm thinking about merchandise, I go back to my original Austin 316 shirt. And the reason I go to that shirt is because it was so satisfying to be able to finally, have someone believe in me and produce a damn shirt based on the fact that they believe I could sell a shirt when I was fired for being not marketable and being injury prone and not charismatic enough to sell a ticket, much less a T-shirt. So that original Austin 316 shirt is my favorite piece of Austin merchandise because it was the first, it was the original, it was the number one selling T-shirt probably in the history of the business, and it meant that much to me. As far as the worst piece of merchandise, I don't think there was a worst piece of merchandise. Hey, Steve, you mentioned on Twitter a while back that you'd tell a story about getting your ring at Christmas, I think. I'd love to hear that story. Also looking forward to hearing the MRI story. Gwen Atkinson, Enterprise, Alabama. Well, Gwen, I'm going to save that MRI story for Thursday. And as far as the story about me getting my ring back, y'all remember a couple months back I was drinking over my neighbor's house. I think I was drinking margaritas. And my ring was all bent up, my famous skull ring that I've had for 10, 15, 20 years. And so I told my neighbor, I said, hey, man, go get a pair of shears or some scissors or something, some metal snips, tin snips, and cut this damn ring off of me. It's starting to freak me out a little bit because my finger was starting to swell up. And I just done that video game shoot, and my finger was all jacked up. And I get claustrophobic about having a damn ring stuck on my finger. So anyway, he got the tin snips out there, and we cut my ring off that night. And so all these months go by, and my wife is going to pull a big swerve on me, the big surprise for Christmas, and present me with a new skull ring, my trademark ring, which I've been wearing forever, because I was just kind of cool without wearing a ring anymore. I was over it. But here's the deal. My fingers have kind of changed size, since I got out of the business. And she had tried to buy me a new ring before we went down to South Texas, and it didn't fit. And I said, hey, man, don't worry about it. And she goes, well, you got to get me your ring size. I said, no. I said, you tried once. It's the wrong size. I said, I'll do without it. Well, she puts a call into my good buddy Rick Maverick. Rick Maverick is the head of Starling Gear. Go to starlinggear.com and check out all the badass jewelry this dude makes. Rick is one of my best friends here in Los Angeles and recently relocated to Portland, Oregon. So Rick was working on a new ring for Ace Metalworks, badass skull ring. So he sends me a text, and I bite hook, line, and sinker. He says, hey, man, I got my new Ace Metalworks ring for you. Send me your ring size so I can get you one so you can wear it. And I said, all right, man, I'll do it whenever I get a chance to go down to the jeweler. And he kept sweating me, and he kept sweating me, and he kept sweating me on it. And I was like, God dang it, it's a little kind of persistent of my buddy to kind of really sweat me about getting my damn ring size. So finally I was in San Antonio doing some shopping, and I stopped by my buddy's jewelry store, Mike Moretti, there in San Antonio off 281. I said, Mike, I got to get my damn ring size because my fingers grew since I got older. And so I reported my damn ring size back to Rick Maverick of Starling Gear / Ace Metalworks, and he promptly fed that information to my wife, Kristen, who obviously knows because we're very good friends. And then she called the place in Houston and ordered me the skull ring. So basically, my buddy was the one that pulled the scam on me and hoodwinked me into giving my wife my ring size, because had he not, I would never be wearing that skull ring because I wouldn't have bought one. That's how that happened, and I was pretty surprised when I got that ring for Christmas. And I was wearing it right prior to my surgery. My fingers are still swole up on my right side because I'm bruised up and stuff from that surgery. I haven't put the ring back on, but it does fit. Hey, man, here's a question from a guy named James Vance. He goes, "Hey, Steve, I hope all is well. I've always been curious. Who had the biggest impact on your wrestling career? Also, if you had to give up one for a year, would you give up hunting or beer?" Man, I tell you what, when you ask me who had the biggest impact on my wrestling career, there's so many people, and Vince immediately comes to mind. But to really bottom line this one and bring it home and give you one answer, I would have to say the guy who broke me in, gentleman Chris Adams. And the reason I say him is because I went to his school, he taught me how to wrestle, and then he is the one that booked me in my first big-time angle, and that was a top angle in a promotion where we were working semi-main event, and we were actually drawing money. And this was a guy that, in working my first program, gave me the notoriety, which allowed me to be able to win the 1990 Rookie of the Year award, and that would kind of launch, the rest of my career. Winning that Rookie of the Year in 1990, Chris Adams booking me in an angle with him, a guy who'd been in the business for 15 years, books himself in an angle with a kid who'd been working for 3 months coming out of his school. So I'll never forget the lessons I learned from working with Chris. He always got to win when he needed to win, but I got the heat back to keep the angle moving forward. And he told me to save my money. I also give a shout-out to Bronco Lubitsch and Skandar Akbar for being up there as well. And there were many people along the way. And thanks for Jerry Jarrett for hiring me down there in the USWA. And Dusty Rhodes for taking me on in WCW way back in the day. And of course, he impacted me because he was one of the reasons I wanted to get into the business of pro wrestling from watching him on television on Houston Wrestling way back in the day. But the biggest impact was Chris Adams, the guy who broke me in and put me in my first angle. Hey, folks, I appreciate you guys sending in all the questions. I'm going to cut the podcast short right here. I'm going to go ahead and do my go home and send this thing riding off into the sunset. I've got more questions that I'll hit back with on the Unleashed show coming up on Thursday. Also, I will probably have a guest on Thursday. Right now, we're going through a lot of discombobulation over here at 316 Gimmick Street. I'm getting my computer fixed. My arm is on the mend, and my wife is running errands all over the city of Los Angeles. So once we get everything reined back in, the podcast will smooth out. We'll get back under control. Once again, my thoughts go out to the families of Chyna, families of Prince, and the families of Lonnie Mack, the guy who was the instrumental guitar player for Stevie Ray Vaughan to latch onto and invent his trademark sound. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off into the sunset.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
All this month, celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month with Pluto TV. Watch movies with the biggest stars like Eugenio Derbez in No Eres Tú, Soy Yo, and Luis Gerardo Méndez in Camino a Marte. Plus, Pluto TV has thousands more movies and TV shows and over 45 channels in Spanish, all for free. So download the Pluto TV app on all your favorite devices and start streaming today. Pluto TV. Drop in, watch free.
Hey guys, Jay Cutler. Started a new podcast called Uncut with Jay Cutler. Most of you know me from the NFL, some of you have seen me on Instagram, and some of you know me from the reality TV world. Each week I'm taking you along with me as we discuss football, trending topics, and whatever's going on in my life each week. I'm bringing along people that are special in my life. Former teammates, friends, and some new people that I like and respect. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Podcasting? I think I'm doing this right. Can't wait to get started with you. Go subscribe now. Uncut with Jay Cutler, Apple Podcasts, PodcastOne, and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.